My name is Aaliyah Thompson, and I'm writing this from my apartment in Atlanta after deleting all my dating apps for the third time this year because I can no longer tolerate the psychological assault of navigating romantic relationships in a world that either fetishizes my blackness as exotic entertainment or rejects it as fundamentally incompatible with long-term love and family acceptance. At 28, I'm a successful marketing executive with an MBA from Emory. I own my home. I'm financially independent and emotionally mature, yet my dating life feels like a continuous battle against racist stereotypes, family prejudices, and cultural assumptions that make authentic romantic connection nearly impossible to achieve or maintain. The racial dynamics in dating became apparent during college at Emory University, where I first encountered white men who were attracted to me specifically because I was black, viewing my race as an exciting deviation from their usual dating patterns rather than simply one aspect of who I was as a complete person. These relationships felt performative and dehumanizing, with partners who seemed more interested in the novelty of dating a black woman than in understanding my personality, goals, or individual characteristics that had nothing to do with race. The fetishization took many forms, from comments about my exotic beauty to assumptions about my sexual preferences based on racist stereotypes about black women's bodies and desires. Partners would make statements about how they had never been with a black girl before, or express surprise that I was educated, articulate, or came from a middle-class family, revealing that their attraction was based on stereotypical images of black women rather than genuine interest in me as an individual with complex thoughts, feelings, and experiences. The most painful aspect of racial fetishization was the realization that these partners viewed our relationships as temporary experiments rather than potential long-term commitments. When conversations turned to future plans, family introductions, or serious relationship milestones, their enthusiasm would diminish as they confronted the social implications of being in an interracial relationship that their families and communities might not accept or support. The family rejection began during my junior year when I started dating Michael, a white pre-med student whose parents lived in an affluent suburb of Birmingham. When he brought me home for Thanksgiving dinner, the reception was politely hostile, with his family making subtle comments about how different I was and expressing concerns about the challenges that interracial couples faced in society. His mother made pointed remarks about wanting grandchildren who would fit in with the family, language that clearly communicated their desire for him to find a white partner who wouldn't complicate their social dynamics or family identity. The relationship ended 2 months later when Michael admitted that his family's reaction had made him reconsider our future together. He claimed to love me, but wasn't willing to fight for our relationship against family pressure, choosing the path of least resistance rather than defending our connection against racist objections. The breakup was devastating not just because I lost someone I cared about, but because it confirmed that my race would always be a factor that potential partners would have to overcome, rather than something they could simply accept as part of who I was. The dating app experience revealed the full extent of racial preferences and biases that operate in modern dating culture. Profile after profile included statements like, "just not attracted to black women," "prefer lighter skin," or "looking for someone who shares my background and values," language that coded racial exclusion as personal preference rather than acknowledging the racist assumptions underlying these choices. The algorithm seemed designed to limit my visibility to white users, showing me primarily to men who fetishize black women rather than those seeking genuine connections based on compatibility and shared interests. The matches I received fell into predictable categories: white men with jungle fever, who wanted to fulfill sexual fantasies about black women, black men who were primarily interested in casual hookups rather than serious relationships, and men of various backgrounds who seemed to view dating me as rebellion against their families or communities rather than authentic romantic interest. The pattern became so consistent that I could predict the trajectory of most relationships before they began. The professional complications arose when workplace relationships became affected by racial dynamics that influenced how colleagues and clients perceive my dating choices and relationship status. When I dated white colleagues, some coworkers made comments about playing the race card or suggested that I was using my relationships to advance professionally. When I dated black men, others would make assumptions about my preferences or cultural identity that revealed their own biases about interracial relationships and professional success. The family pressure from my own community added another layer of complexity, as relatives and friends expressed opinions about my dating choices that reflected internalized racism and colorism within Black communities. Some family members preferred when I dated light-skinned Black men, viewing these relationships as more socially acceptable than connections with darker-skinned partners. Others encouraged interracial dating as a path to social mobility and improving the race through mixed children who might face less discrimination than darker-skinned offspring. The breaking point came during a relationship with David, a white attorney I had been dating for 8 months who seemed genuinely interested in me as a person rather than as a racial novelty. The relationship was progressing well until he invited me to his sister's wedding, where I would meet his extended family for the first time. 2 days before the wedding, he called to postpone my attendance, explaining that some family members weren't ready to meet me and that he needed more time to prepare them for our relationship. The conversation that followed revealed that David's family had learned about our relationship and expressed concerns about how my presence at the wedding might affect family photos, guest comfort, and the overall traditional atmosphere they wanted to maintain. Despite claiming to love me, David was asking me to remain hidden from his family until he could figure out how to make my Blackness more palatable to relatives who viewed interracial relationships as inappropriate or threatening to family harmony. The realization that I was being treated as a shameful secret rather than a beloved partner was crushing and infuriating. I ended the relationship immediately, but the psychological damage lingered as I confronted the reality that even seemingly progressive, educated white men might ultimately choose family acceptance over fighting for relationships with Black women they claim to love. The dating hiatus that followed lasted 6 months as I focused on therapy and self-care rather than subjecting myself to continued romantic racism and emotional trauma. Dr. Monica Williams, a Black psychologist who specialized in relationship issues and racial trauma, helped me understand that my dating struggles weren't personal failings but systematic problems that affected many Black women navigating romantic relationships in a racially biased society. Black women face unique challenges in dating because we're simultaneously fetishized and devalued, Dr. Williams explained during one of our sessions. Society sexualizes our bodies while rejecting our humanity, views us as temporary entertainment while denying us access to long-term partnership and family acceptance. Your experiences aren't unique. They're part of a broader pattern that affects how Black women are perceived and treated in romantic relationships. The healing process involved developing stronger standards for how I expected to be treated in relationships and learning to recognize red flags that indicated racial fetishization or hidden prejudice. I had to understand that authentic love required partners who were attracted to me as a complete person rather than specifically because of or despite my race, and who were willing to defend our relationship against family or social pressure rather than asking me to accommodate racism for their comfort. The self-worth work included challenging internalized messages about Black women's desirability and relationship worthiness that had been reinforced through years of dating experiences that devalued my humanity while objectifying my body. I had to learn to separate my individual worth from broader social messages about Black women's place in romantic hierarchies, understanding that racism in dating reflected societal problems rather than actual deficiencies in my appearance, personality, or relationship potential. The community building that supported my healing included connecting with other Black women who were dealing with similar dating challenges and discrimination. These relationships provided validation that my experiences were common rather than unique, and they offered strategies for maintaining self-esteem and romantic optimism despite systematic obstacles to finding authentic partnership and family acceptance. The standards elevation that emerged from therapy meant becoming more selective about potential partners and requiring demonstrated respect for my identity and background before investing emotional energy in romantic connections. I learned to ask direct questions about family attitudes toward interracial relationships, previous dating patterns, and cultural competency that might indicate someone's readiness for authentic partnership with a Black woman. The successful relationship that eventually developed was with Marcus, a Black physician who understood the unique challenges that successful Black women face in dating and who was committed to building partnership based on mutual respect and shared values rather than racial dynamics or family pressure. Our relationship provided a model for authentic connection that wasn't complicated by fetishization, family rejection, or cultural incompatibility that had characterized my previous romantic experiences. The advocacy work that emerged from my dating experiences includes writing and speaking about racial bias in romantic relationships and the impact of dating discrimination on Black women's mental health and relationship outcomes. I share my story to help other Black women understand that dating struggles often reflect systematic racism rather than personal inadequacy, and to encourage higher standards for how we expect to be treated in romantic relationships. The mentoring relationships I've developed with younger Black women include discussions about recognizing red flags in dating, maintaining self-worth despite romantic rejection, and building relationships that celebrate rather than tolerate their Blackness. Many young Black women struggle with similar issues of fetishization and family rejection that I experienced, and early education can help them develop healthier approaches to dating and partnership. Today, I'm in a committed relationship that honors my full humanity while also connecting me to a partner who understands the intersection of race, career success, and relationship dynamics that affect Black women's romantic experiences. The relationship feels authentic and supportive rather than performative or conditional, providing the partnership I had been seeking throughout my dating journey. Key resources and solutions that made the difference. Therapy with culturally competent providers who understand the intersection of race and romantic relationships helps Black women process dating trauma and develop healthy relationship standards. Support groups for Black women dealing with dating discrimination provide peer connections and shared strategies for maintaining self-esteem despite romantic racism and systematic obstacles. Educational resources about recognizing racial fetishization and discrimination in dating help women identify red flags and protect themselves from harmful relationship dynamics. Community organizations focused on Black women's empowerment provide platforms for discussing dating challenges and developing collective strategies for addressing romantic racism. Professional coaching services specializing in relationship development help individuals develop healthy dating approaches and maintain standards that prioritize authentic connection over racial accommodation. Cultural competency education for potential partners helps create more inclusive dating environments and reduces the burden on minorities to educate romantic interests about racism and discrimination. Online dating platforms that prioritize compatibility over superficial characteristics provide alternatives to apps that perpetuate racial bias and fetishization in romantic matching. Family therapy services help interracial couples navigate family rejection and develop strategies for building supportive relationships despite external pressure and discrimination. Today, when I meet other Black women who are struggling with dating discrimination and romantic racism, I tell them that their worth isn't determined by other people's ability to see and appreciate their value, and that authentic love requires partners who celebrate rather than tolerate their Blackness. The racism you encounter in dating reflects societal problems rather than personal deficiencies, and maintaining high standards for how you expect to be treated is crucial for protecting your mental health and finding genuine partnership. You deserve love that honors your full humanity, and compromising your dignity for romantic acceptance isn't worth the psychological cost.